under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Announce that the meeting is being tape recorded. Chairman's additions or deletions? I have none. Jim?
Nope.
No one? Okay.
With the exception of saying that the open meeting law complaint appears twice on the agenda. That was my mistake. It appears as 2.5 and 2.17.
2.1.
I assume.
Well, see, I thought that you were adding the first one just to say that was the complaint, and then...
I would have put them together if I was being that smart.
Okay. So why don't we take them together?
Yeah.
Okay, so 217 is going to go under
2.5.
2.5. And I did notice something else. Right under 2.5, that doesn't have a number. Authorize the town administrator to sign a contract for recycling dividends program award.
All right.
And
So-
that's why I thought it was 2.5. That was
Was the mistake.
Was the mistake.
It is. I threw it up in there and didn't renumber.
So can I say 2.51?
Sure.
Or 2.52, how's that? 2.5.2 is the authorize the town administrator, okay? These are just little edits in terms of numbering.
That's what happens when I'm left alone to do this document by myself.
Well, I
Poor
appreciate
thing.
you doing it. I think we have everything. There'll be one thing that we did miss, but we'll put that on the next agenda. Okay, 2.1, discuss approved second reading regarding goods and services contract policy. Jim, any changes that we made on this?
It is as you voted it at first reading, and it's ready for second reading, which is adoption.
Do I have a motion?
Yes, I make a motion that we approve the second reading of the goods and services contract policy.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Not all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 2.2, discuss approve vote to authorize the town administrator to sign the contract for the acceptance of the FY20 local cultural council funds. Mr. Kreidler.
That's just the usual and customary that comes in. This is $6,900 for the Cultural Council. Just requires signature of either the board by vote or board by vote and delegation to the town administrator to sign.
Do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve, and do you want to
You can
what?
authorize.
Okay, and authorize the town administrator to sign the contract for the acceptance of the FY20 local cultural council funds.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 2.3, discussion regarding police chief screening committee. Homework?
Jim,
Well, maybe,
well, first Jim put together the required draft, and I reviewed it.
required
screening.
draft for the police screening committee.
Kind of rules, regulations, ground rules, what I'm looking for.
Have you got one, Jim?
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, let's do it together. I'm sorry.
There it is. Thank you.
Right.
Oh, yeah, an extra. I went through it a couple times. I didn't see anything that out of the ordinary. I think it was pretty comprehensive as far as definitions, forms,
Oh, here.
all those fun things. So,
Okay.
Door was locked. Doors were locked, so.
Oh, sorry. Somebody should have unlocked those.
Chief showed up.
Nice.
did you prop the door open?
Was thought
Did
of
you
it.
prop the door open?
Yeah.
Okay.
We took the engine out.
So, just for the sake of the public, because we did
Already had a meeting that.
planning
Yeah.
at the work session.
Sure.
Do you want to
Absolutely. Just give a
review?
kind of the 10,000 foot
Public?
view here.
Mhm.
Yeah, the select board had a work session on the 30th of October, And one of the agenda items was to discuss the police chief screening committee and the process moving forward for the filling of the not yet but soon to be vacant chief of police position. And the board determined that after a great deal of discussion, a screening committee comprised of 7 people would be the pathway forward, and it would involve the currently seated chief, Chief Bailey, an area chief, somebody that is associated with ideally the Neshoba Valley Dispatch District, so it's somebody that's familiar with us, but not somebody that's overly familiar with us and that they've been involved with us too closely. The fire chief as our other leader in public safety locally. Superintendent of schools, just to keep the lines of communication between law enforcement and the school district open, particularly with a focus on the SRO, school resource officer, and then 3 community representatives. And the board tasked itself with homework that each would come with 3 candidates that they thought would be appropriate, suitable candidates for this screening committee. The expectation of the board would be that this committee would screen the resumes once they've been received, that they would do a paper cut first of people that meet the minimum qualifications, and from there select candidates for interview with the ultimate end task of submitting to the board.
For confidential interviews.
Yep, confidential interviews. Those would be closed interviews. And then submitting 3 names, up to 3 names to the select board for your consideration of public interviews and ultimate selection if one meets your approval. This document just basically provides the 4 corners around that process. You have on page 3 the membership, so it would be comprised of, you have blanks there for those that have not yet been filled in.
And did you check with Superintendent Morgan?
I have not yet. I had spoken to him earlier about when we get to this point, asking him. He said he was definitely interested.
Okay, thank you.
Next on page 4, you see the position announcement, which again is a stamped draft in the beginning, so anything that you'd like to see changed or rephrased. Obviously, this is ultimately your document that's going out. And you get into the police chief position description beginning on page 6. This is the most recently approved police chief position description. Obviously, you're aware that you do have the Collins Center in doing a total review of all job descriptions and the
But it's the
classification.
current one anyway.
Correct. That'll carry you through page 12. Then you get to the brief description of the process. Just kind of setting the stage for the timeliness and the need for confidentiality and for keeping the candidates informed so they're not subject to the rumor mill. You then get on to section 4.1, steps in the notification process. I just went over that very briefly.
Question?
Yes.
Last paragraph, initial screening stage of the process that you are charged with performing is not subject to the open meeting law?
Correct. It's confidential. Well, it's allowed by the open meeting. It's not required to be, that's a good point. It's not required to be open
Exactly.
pursuant to the open meeting law.
It's done in executive session,
Yep.
if you will. However, it is under the open
It's covered.
meeting law
Yep.
requirements.
Oh, good catch.
Okay, so that means if you're meeting in executive session, you're not, you need to comply with
Right.
all of the open.
Posting, open session to begin with, go into executive.
Taking minutes,
Yep, absolutely.
votes, all of that,
Good
even
point.
though it's executive session and confidentiality.
Good catch. 4.2, handling of resumes. This contemplates each member getting a binder with the resumes and the resumes staying in the building. Just Wayne and I talked about this at some length, just to try to assure that process is controlled. If I had a binder sitting on the table and my daughter walked in and picked it up and, oh, I wonder what this is, and started reading, and obviously I'm being silly, that's not going to happen, but you just have a better control over the process.
It's out of respect to the candidates. Sure. More than
Most definitely, I agree. I have a question about that, though.
Yep.
Where in the building?
Your office, locked file. would be the most appropriate place. Unless you can think of a different or better place.
Well, since she deals with all kinds of confidential stuff, I would almost ask for the treasurer to keep it in her office, but I don't know if that would disrupt anything down there.
Well, that's definitely, I mean, you could also, because Chief Bailey is going to be on the committee, if locked in his office as well, and he can bring them back and forth when he comes to the meetings, if the concern is.
I think better in the town hall.
Okay.
You didn't think about that, Pat?
I hadn't contemplated it yet, but
It's so important to keep those confidential.
I can work with Jim on coming up with a plan. I don't think we need to decide tonight, but.
Okay.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Excellent. So then 4.3, there are some search committee resume evaluation suggestions. Just for those that haven't been through a public position recruitment process. And then screening committee interview process itself. Just emphasis on the same questions will be asked of each candidate by the same committee member and in the same order. One of the things we've got to assure is that there's consistency in the process, that everybody's getting the same experience.
Pretty much like we did for the lawyers.
Yeah, exactly. 4.5, simple interview do's and don't guidelines. You would think that people would know not to ask somebody about their religion or
Authenticity or
right, exactly.
age.
Sure. Wayne.
I don't know what you're talking about.
4.6, candidate evaluation form. This would be, for each question, ratings between 1 and 5, 1 being unsatisfactory, 5 is exemplary. Just as the questions are being asked, each interviewer has these sheets. They put their initials where the interview is and rate the candidate and offer a comment as they're going through. This, in my experience, has been helpful because you think you're going to remember when they leave the room about all this stuff, but even just jotting down a phrase or a word or something just to keep it fresh and current. Then you get to the overall candidacy. So this is the one that you might do after, when they're done. You go back and you look at your score sheet, you look at your notes, and you can offer things on oral communication, strength of character, leadership, commitment to community policing, and community fit. So those are more the global characteristics. And then this is a sample of a document to be sent to members of the department to solicit input from members of the department on things. What do you believe the role of the chief of police is? What do you think the strengths of the department are? Areas you think the department could be improved? This is a standard that I've actually, quite honestly, pinched from another firm that has used this one specifically.
And this might help develop questions.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then you get to page 27, the process timeline. So search committee selected would be the first, and it's showing as October 30th, but obviously that's when you decided what it was going to be, so that date would end up being tonight. And then you detail to me what other dates you'll want to see put in here.
If I may, I'd like to add, I mean, obviously the search committee needs to organize in terms of who's going to be the chair and who's going to take notes, things like that.
Right.
So, search committee organization.
Yeah.
And meeting to review their charge and
Yeah.
this packet.
Okay. And then it goes on to page 28 with some sample questions for candidates. These are just over the course of 29-ish years. types of questions that I've seen in police chief interviews. And obviously, as board members, if you have specific things that you want to see drilled down on, get those into this packet as well.
Well, we're gonna be coming up with our own questions
for your
anyway,
part, right.
when it comes to us, so I think it's important that the committee figure out what their questions are.
Then the last section,
And this isn't new to some people.
No.
I mean, you know, we've got the chief that's gonna be on there, the fire chief, the other chief,
Yep.
you know, they've all been through it, so I'm sure they'll be able to provide guidance to the others.
the next number of pages, the department position profile. This is actually a document that was put together by Chief Bailey, and it follows a standard format that's been used actually in Townsend before. So this just provides some of the background information about the department and the community. And that's the entire packet.
Can we go back to the beginning, please?
Yep.
Page 4.
If there are things in this over the next couple days that after you have a chance to take it home and look through it that you want to see changed, Wayne and I are scheduled to get together one final time after I make the changes that you've already notated tonight. So if you have some thoughts.
The only thing that I would add is certification. They must be currently certified.
Mhm.
That's in there.
Yeah, it's got graduate of full-time Mass Police Academy are able to obtain certification within a reasonable time period.
Not able to, must already have.
Okay, you could rule out,
Well, that's not how we did it. With both the police chief and.
I understand.
That limits your.
you could have a candidate that's a career FBI professional. There's actually a community not far from here that just went through that and had to go through the certification process. They gave, you know, a period of some number of months for the person to get their credentials. So you do foreclose certain candidates if they've got to be currently certified. I mean, obviously it's the prerogative of the board.
I'd rather not limit it, that scope.
I mean, I think it caused some folks in the community to be uncomfortable.
I think in large part, Sue, though, it's because they weren't, I think those of us that were at this table at that time did not, I think, completely inform the public of what that meant.
Okay. Yeah, I think you're right.
So,
You're
you
right.
know, the.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't end up interrupting anything or,
Right.
yeah, there was no harm in it
And-
or even potential harm in it, but,
And given the atmosphere during that time, it became much more of a focus and much more of an issue than it proved to be, and in fact that it is in other communities that go through the same thing. The process is there in the law to accommodate just that. You take someone who's a senior
Yeah.
with the years and the
Yeah.
ability to get the certification.
yeah.
But again, ultimately,
And you're right, it
it's your
limits it.
call.
It does limit
It'll
it.
come out in the screening process anyway, so.
That's true. That's true. Okay.
And by those of us at the table, I should
I
be
know.
careful to say me. When I said those of us at the table at the time didn't do a good job explaining,
Oh, yeah.
I'll say me.
Thank you for taking responsibility for that. I don't think it was solely your responsibility either.
More information is always better.
Yes, we have learned, all of us. This is a nice little packet. Good job, guys.
Thank you.
take a look. I don't think
Chief,
there's
you
anything, if there's anything that's not drastic.
So the
Nothing
next,
that jumps out anyway.
the next part of this is the homework you assigned yourselves.
Okay, but there was one other thing, when we talked about who would be on the screening committee in terms of the 3 people from the community. We also talked about taking care that they were not necessarily, well, first of all, not employees,
Right.
not currently on any kind of board or committee, that they be professionals in terms of, you know, people used to being able to do interviews and look at resumes and things like that.
You
And-
might have turned your phone off.
And
I've been texting you, we're off the help.
and also to try to choose people who maybe aren't
You were the last.
obvious,
What did we miss?
people who maybe aren't obvious, but and don't necessarily get involved in politics or whatever, okay? So kind of politically neutral was the hope.
That's what I did.
That's what I did too. Is that what you did too?
Yes, but I didn't do it quite as formally
Well,
as you.
I'm just formal, what can I say? I'm just formal.
We were locked up.
And I thought,
Chief, would you mind putting a block in the door down there? We don't have the ability to keep it open. Not a hard key, just the, oh, that key.
There was like
You take
people out there.
like a 3-minute recess?
3-minute recess, please.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, welcome back. We're, where are we?
We were
We
discussing.
are
Don wasn't as formal as you.
finishing discussion on 2.3. Dawn, were you, yes, you weren't as formal as I.
Yes.
That's okay.
Or was I?
No, it was, that's fine. I have nothing else to do. So. No, I just wanted to have something in front of me about each person, so.
Well, if you want to start at the top, Jim and I worked at on the first one, the neighboring.
Oh, did you? Okay, nice.
So we went through some this morning. We kind of settled on a potential candidate. I reached out to him today, talked to him this afternoon. He's police chief. I want to say Denmark.
It is, yeah.
Denmark, okay. From Hudson.
Harvard.
Harvard. He does this quite a bit. He's internationally known for speaking. Seems very well qualified, and was very eager to accept
To help?
to help.
Nice.
So he's on board.
I'm okay.
Yeah,
You
I know the
okay?
gen-
You
who he
need an
is.
official vote to that?
So once you have it all filled, maybe just a vote to
Okay. So, how do you spell his last name?
DENG.
Denmark.
His first name, do you know?
Edward.
From Harvard. Oh, thank you for doing that. And we have Chief Bailey and Chief Boynton. And now we have several community people who we each came up with, and I don't know if there's any duplication or not, but,
I do not have any with yours. I only have one person.
okay. What's your name?
Brett King. I spoke with him. He's very interested in helping out. He's a longtime resident, as is his family, for I forget how many years, but is willing to help.
And for those of us who don't know him well,
He
What's
owns
his background?
He owns King Enterprises, which is a
Thank you.
little excavating land use type position. He also works at his father's farm. I believe he's a captain on the fire department.
okay?
Would you like mine?
Yes, please.
I have not spoken to any of these individuals yet, because I didn't think we were going to do that until we had come up with a list, but Bill Wilkerson was one of the people that I had. He's very highly respected gentleman. He's worked in the banking industry for a number of years. He's retired.
Retired, yeah.
Has been on a number of boards and committees over the
Yes,
years.
with him on as well. He was on the master plan with me, so.
Yeah, yeah.
He's not on there now, though. Is he on any current boards?
Don't know that the master plan is done.
It's not, but I don't know if he,
I was unaware that he was still on it, but.
well, I
have-
know master plan isn't finished yet,
Right.
so unless he's resigned, he's on there.
I haven't seen him at any of the meetings.
I'm not on it anymore, so.
Okay, because we're trying to stay away from anybody that's already appointed to something.
I think he's on.
I don't know if he's continued it or not. Okay, and do you have anyone else?
I have two others.
Okay,
One is John Forrest. John is a local businessman, a resident of Townsend as far back as I can remember.
yeah.
Highly respected gentleman as well.
This is gonna be hard.
Mm-hmm.
We got some good folks.
And the last one, and I don't want to hear a smirk or anything, but Joseph Schenk. Again, he's lived in Townsend most of his life, businessman.
And Joseph. And just because I went through this, I would like to, we have 3 nominees. I'd like to nominate Sam Bergoglio to be considered for membership on the screening committee. He's lived in Townsend his entire life. He's the owner-operator of Apple Meadow Hardware, for anybody who doesn't know. He attended North Middlesex and is a graduate of Fitchburg State with continuing ed at Purdue. His past participation in town government included Townsend Conservation Commission and Townsend Board of Health elected. Sam has also served on board of directors for various boards, Standard Hardware Distributors in Merrimack, New Hampshire, board of directors for Montechusett Ski and Snowboard Club, member of True Value Hardware Member Advisory Council. He's an experienced manager, experienced in interviewing candidates to fill various and responsible positions for his business. He's confident, open-minded, and one who takes the time to listen objectively. I believe Sam would be an asset on the police chief screening committee and would contribute greatly to helping us find a good fit for our town. When I asked Sam if he would be interested, he confidently put forth the following. I believe a great candidate should be friendly and fair, but firm. He or she should be small town oriented with knowledge of many different aspects and needs of both young and older residents. This person should possess great communication skills and have a strong work ethic. I believe a strong police chief should be straight shooter and should be one who leads by example. I'm pleased to be considered for the selection committee and feel this is a very important task and one that should be taken on professionally and purposefully. The second I have is Jeffrey Sullivan from 20 Pheasant Ridge Road. Jeff's family has resided in Townsend for 4 generations, and he's lived here his entire life. After graduating from North Middlesex High School, Jeff went on to study fire science at New Hampshire Technical College, and he served for 4 years as a Townsend firefighter. Jeff is currently employed by Powell Stone and Gravel as a construction supervisor, where he oversees a team responsible for various construction activities, including development of equipment needs and logistics, site assessments, budgets, safety, compliance, interviewing and hiring staff, bid development, and project completions. His involvement in town committees is limited to the Highway Department Study Committee. As time allows and his wife Carolyn requests, he assists her with deliveries for her downtown business, Stewart's Florist. As a longtime resident and local businessman, Jeff has a keen understanding of where Townsend has been and the current and future needs of its community members. He describes himself as, quote, a strong advocate for participating and supporting activities that benefit the local community and is interested in helping Townsend to best prepare to meet its future. I believe that a strong leader plays an integral part in creating a successful police department. I know Jeff to be a gentleman, a thoughtful and perceptive individual, and one who cares deeply for his hometown. By his own admission, he is experienced in making tough, level-headed decisions, and I submit that he would be an asset to the screening committee. And I have a third. I'd like to nominate Colonel Jason C. Gilberti, USA Retired Program Manager 3, Mainsail Group Inc. of 42 Clement Road, West Townsend, to be considered for membership on the screening committee. Jason Gilberti is a currently contract program manager in support of the U.S. Air Force Life Cycle Management Command Airborne Warning and Control System platform located at Hanscom Air Force Base. A graduate of the University of Mass Amherst with a bachelor's in business administration, Jason holds a master's in management from Webster University and completed a U.S. Army War College fellowship at MIT with the Security Studies program. Prior to recently returning to the defense industry, he served as the CEO of MVP Vets out of South Hamilton, Mass., a veterans nonprofit with the mission to create a platform dedicated to assisting and preparing transitioning military veterans into meaningful employment opportunities in life science companies. Jason retired from the U.S. Army and settled here in Townsend in the summer of 2018 after 25 years of active federal service as a combat engineer, paratrooper, and ranger. Throughout his military career, he inspired, trained, developed, and commanded the most challenging engineer formations in our Army. A veteran with multiple overseas assignments and deployments to both Iraq and Afghanistan, Jason knows firsthand what it takes to transform ideas into action, to connect, collaborate, and lead change. Jason grew up in Bedford, Mass., then a small town like Townsend, and would bring a unique viewpoint from a small town growth perspective. He shared that he is passionate about continuing to serve those who serve and to share his brand of building, bridging, and breaking through obstacles for the betterment of others. Given his experience working with high-level professionals as well as the rank and file, I believe Jason has much to offer, including a fresh and objective view to our police chief screening committee. And his resume is attached for anybody who's interested. So, we've got some really good people. I think we do. So we've got Sam and
7.
Jason. And Jeff. I think 7. Can you put all 7 of them on? What did we say about that?
You were looking for 3 community reps.
I know.
It can only take 3 community.
Because we were thinking that that was gonna be way too big.
7-person committee would be with
The
3.
7 was the total, because
community reps.
to make it much bigger makes it pretty unwieldy. I think, anyway.
Again, it's up to what the board decides they want, but as I said, that I've seen where I've gone out and checked, I've seen screening committees up to as many as 15, but I think 15 is way too much, so. But you always want to have an odd number.
Well, if we do all 7, it's 11.
It's a darn good group.
I don't have a problem with 11.
I wouldn't either.
Do you think?
I would, again, I haven't been able,
Yeah.
I didn't speak to those
So
my
we
3
don't know for
candidates, so-
sure if they're going to say
Right, I'd like
yes
to
or
have the
no.
opportunity to do that. Could we not make a complete decision until maybe a brief session next Tuesday and give me an opportunity to speak to the 3?
To make sure they're interested?
Yeah,
Well, you could, to the chair, you could authorize it pending their agreement, then you don't have to meet again.
okay.
So if they say yes, they're in.
Yeah.
If they say no, then we just make certain we're
Yeah,
still
I'm
with
okay with that.
an odd number.
Good to me.
Okay.
So you're gonna reach out to the 3 that you
I'll
brought?
reach out to the 3.
I mean, I asked my 3 simply because I didn't want to have to, and I didn't, I felt like it was only right to ask them first.
I did the same. So I only had 1.
Okay, so, do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we appoint the 7 names that we just read off to the police chief's selection committee contingent upon their agreement to serve.
Screening committee.
Yes, screening, sorry.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nice.
Awesome.
Awesome. Nice job on that. Okay, 2-4, discussion update regarding IT update.
Madam Chair, since the last time we got together and had a discussion about this, we've held a meeting with Winslow Technology Group. They're the vendor that was contracted to come in and do the system upgrade for us. And the purpose behind the meeting was twofold. One was to get the status of the project in total, where we were, what was left. But the more important part from the message I got from you was to have a discussion with them about moving forward and what could be offered from a consultant perspective for providing IT services for the town. They do have a division of their organization that does that for outside agencies, and we would put a scope together, and they said that they'd be interested in bidding if we did. Their recommendation, and it actually mirrors what Wayne had said at the last meeting, would be that you basically purchase a block of support hours, but you also have somebody on site as an internal person that is, what's the word you used?
Liaison.
Yeah, liaison. So instead of them having to come on site for some of the smaller issues that can be resolved on a day-to-day basis, that person would be able to resolve them. And even on some of the...
Even with help.
Right, even with some of the mid-range issues, they would place the call, and they would be the boots on the ground in the building, doing the actual work, but working with the consultant virtually. So if it's the pleasure of the board moving forward, Wayne and I had been the ones that were tasked with working on it. We could put a spec together to put out and solicit proposals. The issue is going to be that we would not be able to contract with somebody until after special town meeting, because as you remember, we have funding in the salary side of the IT budget, and we would need to go to town meeting and seek authorization to transfer that from salary to expense, which is what would be necessary to hire a consultant.
When we originally did it, we had professional services, didn't we? I mean, for doing the work that they had done. It started out to be, what was the other company?
Acuity.
Acuity.
Yeah.
All right, and then it transferred to Winslow.
Correct.
Were they not charged with, what did we pay Winslow to do? Just supply the
No,
equipment?
they built the network. There were some pieces of the scope that were pulled out and purchased because we could purchase them without the markup. But it was the things that had been scoped out by Winslow and Acuity, both in terms of those pieces of hardware.
And that was under what, professional services?
No,
Or
that was
was it-
under our grant.
That was under the grant?
Correct.
And that money's all gone?
Yeah, we're gonna have, we actually had to revise the scope in order to come into budget a couple times.
Okay, so this is going to be, instead of having someone full-time here,
Correct.
we're going to not use it as salary, but instead as a contract position?
Correct.
Okay,
That's what I heard from you.
Yes.
yeah, yeah. And in terms of the on-site liaison, if you will, or the troubleshooter, I guess is probably what that'd be called.
Yeah. We've talked with the current town employee that is interested and has done this in the past, so.
Yeah, there is an employee who has been with us for a couple of years that actually transitioned from this IT work out of the need to be more local and close to home. And she's got, I think it's close to 20 years' experience performing the role that we'd be looking for.
So you're gonna work at, what, creating that position? How will you do that?
Again, Wayne and I talked about it briefly, but it would be, we have in the budget currently a part-time IT
That's right.
position. So what we would look to do is take the total amount of salary we have available in the budget as of the date of town meeting, carve out what we believe would be necessary to have the number of hours for that part-time person, leave that in the salary line, and seek town meeting authorization to transfer the rest down to contract services.
Okay. What do you need now?
At this point, nothing, just that you asked, that we just gave you that update, so between now and the next meeting, we'll have a scope drafted. You can look through, make sure it meets your expectations, and then the day after that meeting, get it out on the street.
I just have one question. Given the person, excuse me, already works for the town on a part-time basis, correct?
Full-time basis.
Oh, they already are.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it's not gonna incur an over 20-hour
Yeah,
expense.
that was my concern.
Yeah.
I read through the resume and I have to agree, I think she would be a perfect fit.
So can you just,
We'll work that out and report the whole package back out at the next
okay,
meeting.
all right, that's fine. I'd like to go back to the previous discussion, please, for just a second. I just looked at my notes. I think we went against what we said we were going to do. When we put the concept of the screening committee together, we said we weren't going to open that up to any employees of the town.
I didn't remember that discussion, but
Yeah, we said no employees or
Relatives of.
or relatives of, or anybody that was appointed or anything. So,
Who falls into that category on that list?
Brett Kane, captain of the fire department.
Well, can I offer a thought?
Yes?
You can look at this with a really fine lens and probably disqualify a couple people. But is that really what you want to do? I mean, you have
No.
Bill, who is appointed, whether he's attending or not, he's currently appointed to the master plan committee. You have Joe, who is an agent of the police department for public authority towing. So I mean, you could slice this thing really, really thin and knock names up, but I don't think you want to do that.
Okay,
with 11
wanna,
people, I think that covers.
it's gonna neutralize
Yes.
everything. Okay, I'm fine with that. I just wanted to make sure,
Yeah.
because we talked about it.
Okay, I didn't remember
That
that. I
we
apologize.
clarified things, okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. And it's up to us anyway, so that's fine. 2.5, discuss vote response regarding open meeting law complaint. Jim?
Yes, Madam Chair, the board received an open meeting law complaint dated October 17th, 2019. It had been filed by Andrea Wood, and the complaint is included in your packets. The sum and substance of the complaint is that at your meeting of October 15th, at the beginning of the meeting, under chairman's additions and deletions, the board voted, and Chairwoman Lucio articulated that there was a matter that had not been known to the board or the chair at the time of the setting of the agenda, and that she was exercising her prerogative as chair to place it on the agenda that evening. That is allowed by the open meeting law, and we went forward that evening. So a draft response for your consideration would be, in response to the October 17th, 2019 open meeting law complaint filed by Andrea Wood, we offer the following response as the governing body. At the televised public meeting of the Board of Selectmen held on October 15th, 2019, Chairman Lucio stated that the matter was being added after the agenda had been posted as a matter not known to the chair at the time of the posting of the agenda. Chairman Lucio's statement can be found at 1 minute 32 seconds of the meeting and can be viewed here on the Town of Townsend YouTube channel, and then the link is listed. Such an addition is allowed by the law. Accordingly, there is no violation of the open meeting law.
It's okay with me.
Fine.
What do you need? Do you need a vote?
A vote to adopt that as your response, and I can get it on the appropriate forms and out tomorrow.
And you've talked to town council about
I
this
have.
too?
Yes, I have.
I make a motion that
The response
a
is written?
response as written be sent to Andrea in response to the open meeting law
Is
violation.
it to Andrea or to the,
Both.
okay.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that takes care of 2.5 and 217, as we discussed at the beginning. The number 2.5.2, as revised, authorize the town administrator to sign the contract for recycling dividends program award. Jim?
Yes, you
That's
have.
all it is?
Yeah, you have in your packets listed as 2.6, which actually is the same as what appears next on the agenda in the amount of $10,200. The town of Townsend earned 17 points in the recycling dividends program, sustainable materials recovery program, and it would be a vote authorizing the town to accept it and the town administrator to sign the contract.
So those two actually are the
They are.
same topic, all right.
Correct.
Do I have a motion, please?
I make a motion that we approve and have the, do you have to sign anything for this,
Yeah,
Jim?
so it'd be,
Um,
accept the grant of $10,200 from the Sustainable Materials Recovery Program and authorize the TA to execute the contract.
I make a motion that we approve and authorize the town administrator to sign the contract for the recycling dividend program award
Of
of $10,200.
10,200.
$10,200.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 2.7, review comment on the mandatory referral from the planning board regarding Seaver Road. Does anyone have any comments, or would we like to just thank them?
Just thank them.
Thank you for the referral.
Yeah, I make a motion that we thank the planning board for the referral. We have no comment.
Moved
Second.
and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
2.8, discuss vote regarding Susan L. Shuford as temporary registrar until March 31st, 2020, to serve in the absence of any member of the Board of Registrars. Jim, just a brief overview. Kathy came to us.
Kathy came, spoke with us the end of last week. There is one registrar that may not be available, and this would be a person that would be able to serve in their stead.
Question? Motion?
I make a motion that we appoint Susan L. Shuford as the temporary registrar until March 31st, 2020, to serve in the absence of any member of the Board of Registrars.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
2.9, discuss request to name an unnamed tributary of Mason Brook as Turtle Brook. Find it.
Back up. More.
Thank you. One more. Landowner. Okay, basically, we got a request from a fellow in New Hampshire, right, over the line in Mason.
Correct.
And he's applying for naming that tributary as Turtle Brook. And because it comes into our town, he wants, he needs to have our okay on that. Anybody want to talk about that?
I have no issue with that.
I think it's neat. So, do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the name to the unnamed tributary of Mason Brook as Turtle Brook.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So Jim, you'll get back to them?
Absolutely.
Thank you. 2.10, review, approve, sign a license for the Frank Farisi on behalf of the Lions Club to sell Christmas trees at the rear of the Townsend Common from November 29th, 2019 to December 24th, 2019.
Painful.
I know, Christmas is coming. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve and sign a license for Frank Farsi on behalf of the Lions Club to sell Christmas trees at the rear of the Townsend Common from November 29th, 2019 to December 24th, 2019.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 211, discussion regarding capital planning committee. Yeah, how many people have we got on the capital planning committee now?
You're looking at them.
One?
No, as of last week, we have two.
We
My
have two. Who's joined you?
Mark Huzzy. So there's just Mark and I. Mark and I have been communicating back and forth, but until we have other appointees, there's not much we can do. Although I went downstairs just to check the box for the capital planning committee, and there are no correspondence in there, which I was surprised. I don't know if somebody's been picking it up or not. But
Perhaps I can check tomorrow and see.
okay.
I know the memo went out with the forms pursuant to the bylaw, so.
Yeah, Carolyn and I have been communicating. She sent me all those.
What forms? You mean the volunteer forms?
No,
No,
capital
the
planning. forms.
capital planning forms.
Oh, out to the
Yeah.
departments?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
One department has spoken to me, Parks and Cemetery. They're in the process of putting theirs together. But he wasn't sure where to send it. I told him just to put it in the box.
I spoke with Roger today about it, actually, so.
You're all set then?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the Board of Water Commissioners is, whether it's gonna be at the special town meeting or through the capital plan proper in the spring, they're looking to reprogram an existing authorization from a dump truck to a service truck, I believe, is what you're gonna see there.
Yeah, Terry had sent me something on that, but she said if I wanted any details to talk to the current foreman.
Yeah. Yep.
So I'm concerned about two things having to do with capital plan. One, we only have two people, and we need more. We need volunteers, okay? I can't say enough about how important it is to have people who have long-term views or can have a long-term view of what we should be spending our money on, because these are the big ticket items. And it's intended so that we can be planful and be planning a rolling 5-year plan. The other thing I'm concerned with is if we have been doing a 5-year rolling plan, then nothing we're getting should be a surprise. We've got things that weren't funded last year, possibly even from the year before, that should be rolling in.
Correct.
Okay, so on one hand, I'm concerned. On the other hand, nothing should be a surprise that's already been submitted and not funded.
Right.
Okay, so that's fine, but we need, don't we typically, who typically appoints them? We've got our appointment. Planning?
There's supposed to be 7 members, but anytime, I've been on this committee twice before. I have never seen it go with any more than 5. For some reason, we've never had a lot of volunteers from the community that want to be participants. Usually, the moderator appoints 4 out of the 7 members. One comes from the
Capital plan?
Yep, one comes from the planning board, and one comes from the finance committee. Finance committee sent a memo back because Carolyn reached out, and they're not meeting until the 21st of November, and they won't appoint anybody until that time. Have not heard anything back as far as what the planning board is doing. I mean, we can operate with 5 people, but right now we just have 2.
So John owes us some as well? Okay. Could we just send a reminder out to planning and to moderator?
I gotta look at the forms for the capital planning, but I believe all of this information needs to be in and reviewed and have something back to the board by December. If the finance committee is not appointing somebody until after the 21st, that doesn't give us a lot of time to review all this stuff.
Well, it sounds like we haven't got a lot of stuff to review either.
Or people
Well-
can do the reviewing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've got the.
You mean, you can't tell me that out of all of the departments in town, there's only one department looking at something new, possibly 2 departments looking at some kind of
No.
capital?
No.
No. They just
Everybody has their 5-year rolling, so.
So,
they- they've
it's
been
what I
updated,
said, there's
and
no
they-
big surprise.
No, and they may have been in the box and already culled. So no, it isn't just one department. I think that the bigger issue though is going to be the seating of the committee,
Mhm.
to have the people to actually do the review. Now, in
It may be that you as town administrator needs to sit on that board for a while, or,
I was going to say, in my now 4 cycles with you, I've not participated in the capital planning process. I'd be happy to.
I think it's time.
Okay.
I think it's time.
Not as a voting member, but as just ex officio.
Well, it's the same thing that happened to us
Staff
last
support.
year where you had to,
Last year, you had to do that.
Right.
which was allowed by charter, so you need to be prepared.
And
I do have a copy of the 5-year that was given last year, so they updated it last year. But still, each department head needs to be doing their
Their
piece of
own
it
plan.
and going out to the next year beyond that and making adjustments in on anything inside the 5-year plan. And I know that the fire chief's out of town. I went to speak to him today, but he's out of town. I know that there are things there that he has on his plan.
I can light the fire on this.
that would be good. That would be good. And all I'd say to anybody who is paying attention, I hear lots of people at town meeting complaining about money, and I just don't, I have a hard time understanding why more people don't feel a calling to at least a small committee like that is so important in deciding how we're spending our big bucks. And I would challenge people to look at their schedules and to say, do they have a financial background? Do they have a calling to do that and to help their community out? Because it's very difficult to get things done properly if we don't have enough help to do that. So, consider everybody scolded, I guess, huh? 212, review and discuss a letter received from Sterilite Corporation regarding an addition to the senior center. If you don't mind, I'm going to read the letter. It's addressed to Chairman Susan Licio, and by the way, that's Sue. Townsend Select Board, Town Hall, 272 Main Street, Townsend. We at Sterilite are very pleased that the home of the Townsend Senior Center, which we built and gave to the town 10 years ago, is now overpopulated and overused. The many programs and activities offered by the staff and the Council on Aging has attracted hundreds of seniors to regular participation. Thus, we are moved to offer to build a needed addition to the building. We have had a preliminary meeting with Karen Moore to understand the need fully, and we are ready to engage the architect and begin. All we need is your permission to get started, indicating that the town of Townsend will accept the gift as designed and built by Sterilite. Sincerely, Al Stone, Chairman. very nice. We've got some challenges that I think you've started to work through.
I did.
Where are we at with that? Challenges in terms of, it's a gift on an existing building, so there's a lot of logistics
Yep.
that we need to tie up.
Okay, Madam Chair, after you and I attended the meeting with the Council on Aging Chair, Jim Hamill and Karen, set to work with council. That was the commitment that we made that Friday, 2 weeks ago. Council and I have been working on it since that point in time. Council has several examples of where projects have been built on public land by private concerns and donated to the community after they were constructed. There are very, very specific rules and regulations that must be followed to a T in order to have this be lawful. The town can have no hand in the design. The ultimate layout of whatever this building or addition would look like can't be involved in any programming for what the space will ultimately be used for. And the land must be conveyed in a manner that provides the private concern the opportunity to be there legally and do the work. So what council and I have spoken about is, if it's the wish of the board to support this project, council would ask a series of questions to the town and make certain that a case can be made that those very specific rules and regulations can be adhered to. And presuming that that's the case, then everything could be green lighted. So if it's your wish this evening, a vote to support the gift contingent upon council's ultimate recommendation that those rules can be and have been adhered to.
I'm good with that.
Yep.
Do I have a motion?
Absolutely.
And that can be turned around inside of a couple of days with council. He'll be back tomorrow, and he's already done the prep work on it, so.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I
What
make
do you
a-
want for a motion, Jim?
It would be moved that the town choose your adverb, gratefully
Gratefully
accept the gift contemplated in the letter from Starlight dated October 16th, 2019 to the town regarding an addition to the senior center to be designed and built by Starlight.
Okay, contingent upon,
Council's final analysis and approval.
okay.
I make a motion as
That
to
he
way
said.
what he said. You think I'm gonna remember all that?
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. We did that. 213, review, approve, standard operating
guidelines.
guideline. Number 14009, membership requirements. Do you have a motion? Or we can just say,
You can do them both.
okay.
Yeah.
You wanna do
Do
both of
we
them, or
have to
just?
do these, or
Yes.
is?
Yeah, we
Okay, so
went through
it's-
this.
That's right, we
year
do.
ago.
He writes them, we approve them.
Okay. Like we know anyway.
What have you done?
Yes, I know.
Yes?
Could we, well, yeah, but that doesn't count, unfortunately. Anyway,
I make a motion that we approve SOG number GO 14-009, reference membership requirements. And do you want to do both of them right now?
Yes, please.
Okay, and approve SOG number ADM 17-004, reference driver operator qualifications.
Second.
moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 215, review, discuss one-day special license request.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
the applications that you have in your packets at 2.15 comes in from Michelle Warnham for a function at the VFW Function Hall. This would be 11/22 of 19 from 7 to 11 p.m. Annual turkey party put on by the American Legion Post 199. They do have a distributor that's been identified, Girardi and Atlas. And they do have a TIPS certified bartender that'll be on site, and they have provided the appropriate insurance binder for alcohol liability and personal and property.
So that's it.
They're good.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the one-day special liquor license as requested by Michelle Warnham.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 216, vote to revoke the following liquor license renewals.
Madam Chair, you have two in your packet, retail license renewals. One is for the Townsend Post 6538 VFW. And you'll recall that it's been for the better part of a year now that we've been dealing with applications that are supposed to have been submitted for change of manager. Terry Roy is still listed as the manager. She hasn't been on site or involved in coming on close to a year now.
And no one else has submitted?
The paperwork has never been submitted
Okay.
to try to get this cleared up. So my understanding is that the expectation on site down there is that they are not or they do not have a liquor license. There may be some discussion about coming back at this again in the future, but for this purpose, it would be appropriate, given the history, for a vote of revocation of the renewal for the retail license for the Townsend Post 6538 VFW.
Do I have, let's take these separately, please.
I make a motion that we revoke the liquor license number 00005-CL1286 for the Townsend Post 6538 of the VFW.
If I might add, just the renewal, the word
Just renewal.
Right. Because if you're revoking an existing license,
Revoke
there'd
the
be
renewal,
hearings and all
Okay.
kinds of other fun stuff.
and that's been seconded?
Second, yes.
I do have one question.
Yep.
Just, so that means the main part, the bar part, if you will, the
Correct.
private bar part that the VFW has
Is no longer a
is,
bar.
is no longer a bar.
Correct.
Does, somebody asked me, does that mean they can bring your own
No.
booze in?
The town of Townsend does not have a bring your own beverage, bring your own beer, bring your own booze, BYOB. That does not have a regulation that allows for that. So no, you can't do that.
Okay.
Now, they could still rent the facility for one-day liquor license
The
events
way
like
that
the one we
Michelle
just
was
did.
doing, right.
But those, again, would be separate licenses that would be on a day-by-day basis.
And that means that, just to a layman that doesn't know anything about this stuff like me, that would mean they'd do just like the one we approved, working with a licensed distributor.
Correct.
That's in charge of the serving and the liquor coming in and leaving.
Correct.
Okay,
With the appropriate insurance certificates and
okay,
everything.
okay. Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so that's one.
And the next, Madam Chair, is also seeking the revocation of a retail license renewal. And this is Bailey's on the Green LLC, doing business as Bailey's on the Green. The address at 40 Scales Lane, Townsend. And this, you'll recall, is when Bailey's was performing the function of the bar manager for the clubhouse. And they're no longer, they no longer have an arrangement with the club to do that.
So this would, you would want a motion, we need a motion again to,
Revoke
Revoke
the
the
renewal.
Renewal.
Yep.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we revoke the following license renewal for, what number is it? 00020 RS 1286 for Bailey's on the green.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 217 we did. 3-1, town administrator updates and reports.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Under section 1 on the next page, personnel, Collins Center personnel project update. We are well underway on both sides of the project that you've contracted for. The first being the compensation and classification plan review and update. Every employee has had an orientation session with the consultant. They've been given a copy of their job description and the interview form, the intake form. They've been given time to fill the form out, and the interviews with the consultant actually began just today, the one-on-one interviews where the consultant will have had the opportunity to review the existing job description, the comments and notes provided by the incumbent in the position, and then have a one-on-one desk audit discussion with them. All of that will generate revisions to job descriptions if they are deemed appropriate by the consultant, given the fact that I think that the two parties involved have a combined 60 years experience doing municipal personnel work. Those revisions would then come as part of the project up to the select board, consistent with the current policy, which will likely be the revised policy as well, because it's a standard for your consideration and review and approval of any revisions that would need to be voted. At the same time that desk audit work is going on the job descriptions, there's an audit being done of comparable communities and what the ranges of compensation are for a police chief, like community, treasurer collector, an office assistant, and everything that we've got from the most responsible to the least responsible positions in the organization. Those that can hardly hurt you to those that can take your life and liberty and everything in between. So that range of compensation data will be rolled into a new compensation and classification plan that will then be married up with the revised job descriptions. Each job description will be rated in terms of its level of responsibility in the organization against all other positions within the organization. So again, the greeter, that's opening the door and welcoming people to town hall if one existed, to the police chief and everything in between. That entire packet will then come before you for your consideration as a revised compensation and classification plan.
I have a question
Yep.
on that. Do they look at, here are all of the components of the job compared to the title, and make recommendations for, let's say that over the course of the last,
They recognize that titles could have morphed over time and are no longer reflective of either the existing job as it's written or a revised job as it's
Okay.
going to come to be written. So titles are all in play.
okay.
It's a little easier if the position for which there's a discussion about title change is vacant, because obviously if you have an incumbent that is in a position, there's always a discussion about what that means when you're changing somebody's title. So, but yes, that's all at play.
Okay.
The second part of the contract that you've got with the Collins Institute is to do a top-to-bottom review and revision of the personnel policies and procedures manual, looking at it against our existing bylaws, charter, as it is and as it may be, and make sure everything is current. Additionally, the subcomponent of that is to make certain that there is a marriage between our collective bargaining agreements and any policies and procedures that are going to be in effect. The last time a comprehensive review was done on the personnel policies was in 2003, and at that time we had maybe a third or more of the employees in the government, on the general government side, were unionized. Now it's upwards of 95% are unionized. So there needs to be a reconciliation of what exists in contract and what exists in policy to make certain that they speak together and dovetail nicely. So that project is well underway as well. I believe you actually had individual meetings with a member of the Collins Institute yesterday, so that your individual perspectives, which then inform what ultimately you have as a position as a board going forward have been taken into account already.
One of the things that wasn't, it still isn't totally clear to me is, I know some departments have talked about making changes in who does what or in responsibilities or whatever. What, how does that get handled? I mean, because I'm thinking, well, they're gonna sit down and talk to somebody who does this particular job, and the person's gonna say, I do this, this, and this, and you know what, those things that are in the job description, I don't do those anymore, but I do these things. That's fine, okay, so that's putting it together. Todd, we're having a discussion, I'm really not going to entertain any questions from the audience, so you can relax, okay? I just wonder if, where does it happen that you would talk about reorganizing a department or changing things?
When the drafts come back of what we actually are
Yeah,
versus what exists now, which in some cases we have descriptions that aren't accurate and don't reflect what we
right,
are.
so once they're cleaned up in terms of what people
Before you-
actually
right,
do.
Before you vote to finalize that structure, that organization with those job descriptions, that would be when the discussion would take place. Because you have to actually have reflected on the table in front of you what we currently are.
Okay,
Because you try to do that now and the documents don't match.
yeah, because
in
it's
large
just too
part.
fluid. Yeah, okay, thank you for that.
Okay. Next, we have, under Personnel, 1B, Water Department Interim Superintendent Contract Extension. At your work session, you were able, on the 30th, you were able to take the matter up. Council had opined that it was appropriate to do an extension for a period of time that would generate an expense that would not be greater than 25% of the original contract value. And that in doing so, an amendment or an addendum would be in conformance with procurement. So, working with the office staff at the water department, they prepared an addendum that matched that 25% and presented it, and that's what you took your vote off of on the 30th. As of this morning, I had communication with Ms. McEnroe and was able to get a copy because it's under $15,000. It's something, it's under $5,000. It's something that I would be authorized to be able to sign. So with your prior approval, I did execute that and sent a scanned copy over to her. So she's good to go for that period of time, which is roughly 2 weeks. The follow-up in the email that I sent back off to the staff in the water department was, if the Board of Water Commissioners wish to extend beyond that 2 weeks that is allowed under that 25% addendum rule, they just need to let us know, because depending on what they're interested in doing, there are different processes that we would have to follow.
In terms of procurement.
Absolutely. Example, if the water commissioners scoped out a project to you that did not include section 2 under the current scope, which is administrative work, which is office oversight, budget oversight, and the like, but instead limited it to engineering or other related service, then it will be exempt from procurement. If they want to continue to have that section 2 in the scope that they drafted that provides that there would be administrative function, then it would not be exempt. So that's one question that needs to be answered. The second is, if they want to have both still, and it's under the umbrella needing to be procured as a good and service under Chapter 30B of the general law, they would then need to say, how much time are they expecting they need? And that becomes important, because if it's expected that it's roughly $2,200 per 2-week period, which I believe is roughly the number, and they're expecting that they need 8 weeks, that would be under $10,000 in total, and would be something that would require us using best business practices from a procurement perspective. So we have experience with this person. They've done a good job for us, and you know, they have the required experience and certification, so we're gonna do a deal that is the $8,800 for this person for the next, you know, X number of weeks. If they want a longer period of time, where they reasonably anticipate it would be a longer period of time that's gonna go over 10,000, that puts us into the next bracket of procurement, which would require us to do 3 quotes off of a written scope. And you don't have to actually receive quotes back from people, but you have to at least solicit 3 quotes from people that would be qualified to do the work.
So they could send one to her.
They can send one to her and two other groups or people that might be qualified, and whether we receive 3 back or not is not relevant. Just the fact that we show that we did solicit 3, and then it could be contracted from that point. So I've not yet heard back as of today what the wish of the Board of Water Commissioners is on that.
Todd, have the commissioners met since last week?
No, we'll meet next week. In regards to this, I did send an email to the IG office, as well as get the advice of at least 2 MC PPOs. Because a certified water operator and an engineer it fits the definition, according to the IG's office specifically, I have the email, that it's a related profession, which makes this a professional service contract that is exempt from 30B.
But you didn't hire her as an engineer.
No, but you also, you hired her as a superintendent with a license as a certified water operator, what makes her a related professional. I put the term, told the IG's office exactly what we had done.
Why is it a problem doing it the way that we just described, though? It doesn't really matter, it comes out the same place.
It does, but it puts another step. It is no continuance or continuity to a certain, or flow to it. You have to wait for you to make, this board to make a decision.
We already voted on that.
On the interim, but going forward, it's a professional service contract, so it should be exempt from 30B.
Madam Chair, even if that were the case, which you did, I trust you got council's response today?
Yes, I did.
So council, Todd, as a Board of Water Commissioners member, as an individual, someone
Individual.
in some capacity sent a letter to council articulating that he disagreed with the fact that it's requires to be procured under 30B, for the reasons he just said. Even if it's true that it doesn't need to be procured, you still don't have the authority to execute a contract.
No,
So it
that-
still has to come before
No,
this board.
that, I'm not arguing that
But
point,
that's the
because
point, Todd.
that's something else that we can't discuss.
We can.
Wait a minute,
We
why
can discuss
can't
that.
we?
That's
No, I don't wanna go into that because it takes too long. But what, I don't have a problem with you approving the contract, but just have to continually keep coming back is potentially, it just,
We
all right,
got
maybe
an
I'm just too
addendum.
stubborn,
Hold
but I know
on.
procurement
Hold-
law,
hold-
and I just want it done right, and
Hold
if it's a
on.
professional service.
Time out, okay?
I just hope the
I'm
camera
just-
picked that up, because Todd just said, maybe I'm just too stubborn, and I just want to make sure.
Oh, listen, I'm the first one to admit I'm stubborn as
Okay,
days long.
so let's just back up a little bit, okay? The addendum got done.
Yep.
We're fine for another 2 weeks.
Yep.
Your board is meeting,
Yep.
okay, next week. So you can say, yes, this is fine. At the same time, you can discuss how much going forward might you need, so that you're being proactive about that and ahead of the curve, so that you'll have the answers you need to know whether or not you need to go for the under 10,000 or over 10,000. So all of that, you've got 2 weeks to make that all
I
happen.
understand that. I've watched contracts and everything that should have been done in a more timely fashion get
Todd,
derailed.
this is not about the past. This is about the future.
If you don't
The
learn
cur-
from history, you continually
I don't
repeat it.
I do not want to entertain discussions about the past unless it is something that we did incorrectly, okay? I don't want it, just because, you know what I feel like? I'm gonna be honest with you, okay? I'm gonna be terribly honest.
Okay?
I feel like you simply do not trust anything that comes out of this office. That's how I feel. Yet, I have a licensed procurement officer, and I have town council. And those are the people that we listen to,
Okay.
all right?
And I was correct in
And,
the insurance
hold on,
part.
I'm not done.
So
Okay?
you can speak as-
And you are speaking as a member of your board outside of your board meetings. And
In what way? As a citizen, if I have questions about procurement,
that's
I'm
fine, then
allowed to do that.
then you know what? Go to your own board meeting and talk to them about all
Why
those
can
things.
I not talk to the IG's office? That
You
says
can
right on
talk
their
to-
page, you can do that.
You can talk to whomever you want to talk to. But then when you come before us and complain about the contracts that aren't signed or the way that the business is being conducted, you can't tell me you're talking just as Todd.
I've been talking about this for about 10 years.
Okay, all right, I'm done. This is the advice we're getting from our procurement officer. This is, you have 2 weeks to figure this all out so that everything will be a smooth transition.
Yep.
Let's move forward, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. You need anything else?
Just, Todd,
Question.
Yes, sir.
Did the IG's office get the scope of the contract? So point 1, point 2, and point 3?
Yep.
Okay. I'd love the email that you
All right.
got then. If you could
Yeah.
forward that, that'd be great.
Yep.
Thank you.
One point? Is that I think, I don't know how they can, when they meet next week, determine how further out they need somebody until we have a further understanding of whether or not when our current supervisor and.
That's why, that's out of our hands, and that's kind of why the original one was sent to you, because we don't know.
Right.
There are certain unknown, and that's why it was sent to you that way. And that was the understanding on the professional service procurement. That's why, and it makes it uncomfortable to have to keep you know what I'm saying? All I'm trying to do is shorten the amount of paperwork that needs to be done.
Well, then you could go for the over 10,000 and you'd be covered.
Just do it once, yeah.
That's what I'd do.
No,
You have that option. And if you don't spend it, you don't spend it.
And the other part that informs that decision is stuff that we can't talk about publicly, which is the employees' rights.
no, so I have no idea, you know, nobody knows. So one person
Is
probably
the employee scheduled to come to your meeting next week?
believe so. So maybe it would, I don't want to surmise or anything.
We may know something then.
Correct.
All set? Dawn?
I'm also,
Thank you.
Righty.
C,
1C, Building Commissioner vacancy, and there's several subtopics. Interim appointment, regionalization opportunities, workload trends, permitting process and software, existing permitting guidebook, and if it's your wish, a letter of appreciation from the board to the commissioner, Mr. Hanks, who after 22 years has given his resignation. So, interim appointment, we need to have somebody that is available for the public to keep accepting permits, reviewing plans, and moving the paperwork forward. So, when we had to have the recess earlier, that was, I had to get the key for the office downstairs because Bentley, who is our alternate, was meeting tonight with a couple people that have concrete that needs to be poured and they need their permits reviewed.
and it's getting colder.
Sure. So Bentley has, our alternate, has agreed to make himself available for set office hours for Tuesdays from 4 to 8, Fridays from noon to 4, and Saturdays as needed for inspections. He knows, he's lived in the town, he doesn't currently, but he lived in the town for 20 years or more. He's been our alternate for a long time, was once our actual commissioner as well. So
And where does he work now?
he's full-time in Boxborough, and it would be for that reason that he couldn't carve off more time than the time that I just outlined.
Do you need anything from us, or?
Yeah, if you could vote to appoint Bentley as the interim building commissioner.
What's his whole name?
His last name, I want to blow it.
Don't ask me, I've only known him as Bentley.
Well, if everybody knows him as Bentley, I think we're okay voting as Bentley. Okay,
I don't know any other Bentley.
Yeah.
I don't either.
It just left my head as I was
That's fine.
saying.
Do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we appoint Bentley as the interim building inspector.
Commissioner.
Excuse me, commissioner, for the hours, Tuesday 4 to 8, Friday 12 to 4, and Saturday as needed.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Could we post that everywhere,
Absolutely.
please?
Yes, because I've had several questions.
Yep, we'll get it
Yeah,
on the
I think
door,
that you
on
have,
the
we have a
website.
lot of contractors out there asking, what about my permits?
No, absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
we've had a steady flow in the paperwork. Janet has been doing a good job of getting everything prepped and ready for when we have somebody that can officially put ink to paper.
Okay. All those in favor?
Hey.
Aye. On that topic, I know that there's been times where our current support staff in there has not been available.
Correct.
Is there something that we can do on a short-term interim basis to make sure that we have coverage? Because
That entire suite is presenting some difficulties right now. The health administrator is on an extended leave, not yet defined, and the office administrator or department assistant for the building commissioner has an issue that requires her to be out for different intervals as well. So we've got the door posted, we've got the website posted indicating as much. I know from the Board of Health perspective, it's posted to reach out to the current chair, Linda Johansson. And she, if it's something that's administrative that she can handle, she is handling, and if it's something that is more technical, she's forwarding off to our health agent through Neshoba. From the building perspective, I know that Carolyn has gone in and retrieved the blank permit applications for people when they've needed them in the recent past, and tried to facilitate that, so we can post and have Janet make certain it's posted that if she's not going to be there, to direct them up here. And we'll do the best we can to help them through.
okay.
Thank you. Regionalization opportunities, Madam Chair.
Well, the other night, we talked about my helping you and got authorization from the board for me to help you look into potential regionalization opportunities. And just as a rule, regionalization aside, but just as a rule, in business, I think a lot of times we look at a vacancy and say, is this an opportunity to reevaluate what we're doing and how we're doing it? So in the context of regionalization, I think that that might be a conversation that Jim and I would have, and then move forward to investigate any possibilities on that,
Worth
okay?
looking at.
So we're gonna be working on that, if that pleases the board.
And I assume that means with the other topics on here, that that'd be part of it.
The workload trends research,
I think you mean D, right?
all of them.
Yeah, they
All regional opportunities being,
well, not only regional opportunities, but I think, 3, 4, 5 are basically taking a look at what we have and how we can improve it, basically. And if that's through regionalization as part of that, then lump it all together. I
yep,
don't care.
that'll inform regionalization discussion, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you need some kind of numbers in order, before you go somewhere and say, hey, do you wanna sit down and figure out how we
Yeah,
might do this together?
Yeah, because I don't want to fill a position because.
For the sake of filling it?
Position, because it's always been there. Let's take a look at it.
That's
Yep.
exactly what I'm thinking as
And it kind of
well.
goes to D as well.
Yep.
That's right,
Absolutely.
that's right. All of those things need to be considered in that. Anything else to be said on all of that? Oh, the letter,
C6, letter of appreciation from the board.
yes, please.
Yep.
Could we authorize you to draft a very nice letter?
Authorize me to draft a letter.
Yeah, I make a motion, I was
Yeah.
reading down through it, we get to the bottom quick. I make a motion that we authorize the town administrator to write a letter of appreciation from the board to our
Departing?
departing building commissioner,
Second.
With many thanks.
with many thanks.
Gotcha.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then you have D, facilities coordinator
Ditto.
vacancy. We did get official notice. It's been the incumbent in the position has been out for a bit of time, and we did get official notice as of a week ago, last Friday being his official last day. So the same discussion about the building commissioner position, looking at the needs. It also informs the earlier discussion about job descriptions with the consultant. There are interchangeably 2 titles for this position on the books. One is facilities coordinator and one is facilities manager. You'll find some documents that refer to it one way
And
and
we have a
others.
bylaw too.
We do. We do. 2009, there was a bylaw to create the department. And it was called coordinator and that, yet we have job descriptions calling it manager and a comp and class plan calling it coordinator. So,
Clean it up.
Well, just from my perspective, again, I think it's an opportunity for us to look at what's being done, what's currently on the books, what do we got for job descriptions, what should it be,
right?
okay? And I guess my feeling is I'd look to you as the one that needs to figure out
Yep.
exactly how that little department needs to work and should work going forward. And
Absolutely.
if that affects the accuracy, if you will, of the bylaw, present the bylaw for a modification.
Yep.
Okay, so,
Or revocation.
exactly.
You really shouldn't have a
It shouldn't be a
department and a
bylaw,
bylaw.
no, because that doesn't really allow you to change
It's
things.
very restrictive for position.
I mean, it's an administrative
Function.
function,
It's
and
10
it
10 years
doesn't.
old, and it's not reflective of what the world needs right now.
No.
Okay.
Meanwhile, where that's concerned, are we all set? You've got,
We are. We
Bo
have.
and
We have.
you've
We have
got-
Bo, and Eno has stepped up, and he's putting hours in. Bo's actually away this week, so Eno's putting hours in, and we're doing all right.
okay, and they're just checking with you, they reporting directly into you at this point, right?
More than I care to
Every time I've
hear.
been here in the last 2 weeks, I've seen them.
Yeah.
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 They've been great.
Yeah. No, they're finding all kinds of things to clean up and get made right. So, and if it would please the board, a letter of appreciation to Mr. Mercurio, our departing facilities coordinator or manager.
Yes, and best wishes.
I make a motion that we ask the town administrator to write a letter of appreciation with many thanks to our departing facility coordinator / manager.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Wonderful. Next, E, vacancies, boards, committees, and commissions. There's a document in your packets that lists all of the committees and commissions.
Yeah, I don't think it's an updated one, though.
Okay.
I think there's some missing as well, especially with the committees, the boards committees.
I don't know where this one came from, but I don't think it's up to date, because the board committee openings, it still lists North Middlesex, and that was filled
Gotcha.
with Rob Templeton.
Flag's not
I
on here.
believe they still had a Recreation Commission opening.
The flag committee, I know I've signed several resignation.
Oh. Have we gotten more resignation? We've gotten some, but I don't know if he's gotten any.
Well, we haven't filled any of the ones that I know.
Okay. So flag is probably
So,
there.
so update this list
Yes, please.
and get it back at the next meeting for posting.
Yeah, and what about the audit committee? You wanted to talk about that though, right?
Do I have that down here?
Yeah,
It's
you
actually
did.
on the list
Sorry.
right there in
Yeah.
this exact one, so, you've not designated one of yourselves yet to serve. The policy calls for one. Yeah, right.
He's
So it calls,
he's looking the other way.
it calls for one of you, a member of the FinCom, and a citizen. The FinCom has voted their recommendation, and it's your decision, but their recommendation is Lynn Pinkerton, member of the FinCom, to serve. And what we really need is the citizen member. So the policy contemplates somebody that has finance experience and ideally municipal finance experience. So we'll get that back out on the line. I know it is posted. I did a revised posting yesterday that,
I have somebody I can reach out to.
excellent.
So you're
Do you
saying.
want to out them publicly now?
No. Let's just say a former finance committee.
You need a selectman member? What's
Yes.
the time period on that?
It's a very narrow window. Every 3 years, there'd be a procurement process, which is really, we'd sit in a room and look at the scope, and the scope is defined by law, and then put the bids out, and when the bids come in, you'd evaluate the proposals and make a decision and a recommendation.
So when's the next one due?
We have 2 more years left on that. The second part of the scope of this committee is when the annual audit is done and the management letter and financial statement is presented. It would be to this committee, and then it would be disseminated out into the community by this committee instead of being done by the staff people whose work is being audited.
So when does it need to be filled?
I think we're good on the first part for 2 years. The second part, we just had this done, so it won't be until next summer.
So we can put it out there, but we don't have to fill it right away.
There's no emergency.
There's no, do you know what I'm saying?
I do. I'm just wondering why you're interested in pushing things out until
Because I never push things out?
next late spring. You make me nervous.
Well, if you ask somebody to do it now and then spring comes and things change,
Or people change?
I don't want to do it twice, I guess is my.
Okay, well, we'll keep it on the list, but I guess if you have somebody that's a citizen that you think fits the bill, we can at least get that one.
But you also want to be able to give people an idea of when their services are going to be needed, that's all.
That-
That's what I was
don't
thinking.
ask
But you
people
don't
to-
want to do it too far in advance because there's something in their personal life or
Yeah, they could
professional
hit the
life may
megabucks
change.
and buy a house in Wayland, you know? I mean.
I'd be in the islands right now if I had the wings.
Certainly
Okay.
not going to be Massachusetts.
Okay,
Gotcha.
thank you. But you will update this,
Absolutely.
please?
Yep. And then, number 2, finance. We have had submission to DOR, so
I think there's one other that you, under that, you had in the Neshoba Tech.
Oh,
Rep?
yeah, that one, we really, the Neshoba Tech representative, we have a representative, but we need an alternate.
right.
Can I call out somebody?
Go for it.
Well, I'm just thinking, I mean, it's a school committee, and Lynn volunteered to do that. I wonder if Lynn would be interested in doing that. It would give her some of the background that she's been looking for.
Sure. Reach out to her.
Yeah.
You
Just-
you and me.
Good idea.
Just say the board's wondering if you'd be interested, since she applied for North Middlesex. It's an alternate member, but it's a good learning experience.
Gotcha. Good. Thank you. Finance, you know that we were put a little bit behind the 8 ball when we had some data loss recently. Lori, our town accountant, and Anna, our treasure collector, and their respective staffs have been working tirelessly to try to make up that ground again, and they did. And we're back on track again, so we have a submittal, so we should be getting word back from DOR probably within the month. Obviously, we're later in the process with them, so there are other communities now that are also in the queue. But I know DOR is putting
Although a lot of
all
communities
resources.
put in early.
Yeah.
I mean, some places have had their town meeting already.
Yep, yep.
They've had their specials already, so there may not be that much of a backlog.
Yeah.
I think everybody tried to jump on it this year because of what happened last year.
Right. So I
So
won't.
when we get that back,
Mhm.
how long before we have to wait for the special? What's the notice?
The notice for a special is 2 weeks for posting and nothing more.
Okay, so if we got it back by Thanksgiving, we've got a couple weeks after that, we could have it
Yep.
early December.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay. Well, we'll cross our fingers on that one.
All right, under miscellaneous, the highway department is doing a lot of cutting back on roads in preparation for road work in the spring. So all of the sand, silt, leaves, everything on the sides of the roads, you'll see some roads, they've already done the work. They actually get in there and they cut it back.
Seeing the trucks fly by every,
And you need that for the drainage anyway.
Right, and this is a
For the
type of
sewage.
material that they used to bring to the recycling center, and they've got quite a pile that's down there now, and the Board of Health took the position, you may recall, a year ago, asking that they not bring any additional material down there. There's no value to this. In fact, it's gonna cost us to try to find a place to dispose of it, but there may be private concerns that would have a use for it, for fill or for some other purpose. So if we're able to declare it surplus and put it on the wall downstairs as surplus material,
Anybody
and
could come
and
get
scope it
it.
that they get it, at their expense, if they have to hire a truck or whatever, it'll save us the time and the money of trying to find a place to get rid of the stuff.
Okay.
So a motion to declare surplus road cuttings.
I make a motion that we declare the road cutting surplus.
second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And sidewalks on the common update. You'll recall that we received, based entirely on the heavy lifting done by Senator Tran on his side and Representative Harrington on the House side, a budget line item dedicated for $70,000 to do commons at the sidewalk over. This has been an issue that we appropriated locally, $25,000, which can be used for design engineering and the work. Went out to bid on it last year and it came back well over what we had available to us. Our senator and rep were successful in getting an earmark in the environmental bond bill to do the work, but that as a bond issue then required the secondary step of having the secretariat and then the governor agree to release it. And as much as we wrestled that issue, we weren't able to get it released. So they took the more aggressive step and sought to get it included as actual line item appropriation in the budget, and it passed. So today, Roger and I were communicating back and forth. We have a contact now in the state government through Executive Office of Finance that has identified the earmark and has provided the forms that are necessary to get filled out in order for us to be able to access the funds. So Roger is dusting off the scope that was created a year and a half or so ago. We're going to make certain that it's sufficient level of detail that we can actually build the.
Who built the scope last
I
time?
don't know.
Because they didn't have an engineer the last time.
Right, so when Roger gets it to me, we'll determine what level of work needs to be done additionally on it. We do have the funds available to have engineering done, get it, so it is, the specification is ready for bid, and concurrently we'll be drawing down funds.
How long does it take to get the engineering study done?
It'll be pretty short. I mean, this isn't a particularly technical project. We're dealing with what you see.
Well, just because sometimes people talk to me about stuff like that at home. No, my brother's in construction. And when that whole thing first started, I talked to him and he said, you really probably need, you need a good engineer on that.
Yeah.
He said, because you've got to probably put bars,
Rebar and everything.
the,
No,
the,
absolutely.
the rebar and stuff, so, he said it's not just a simple thing.
Yeah. I wanna be respectful of the fact that this is a cemetery and parks property. They have care, custody, and control
So you'll,
statutorily. I'll work.
you'll help Roger
I'll
through the
wo- yeah,
logistics,
I'll work
fine.
the procurement
Good.
and engineering side with Roger, but I wanna, again, make certain that he's empowered as, you know, the superintendent for the cemetery and parks.
Good.
Okay. And unless something comes to me before you say adjourn, that's what I have for you.
Okay.
3.2, announcements, updates, reports. CDF grant, what is this?
That is the document you and I spoke about earlier tonight, which is the
Oh, just to let,
extension.
just to let the rest of the board know that there's some special conditions on that grant. So I've been asked to sign it, and I just want you to know I'm signing something. Okay?
It's providing for an extension of the window within which we can use the funds. This is the CDBG CDF grant for housing rehab primarily.
They had to make a change on it.
One of the conditions was that we could not use the vendor that we were going to be using to administer the grant, so we had to go out and procure another firm to do the administration, and that pushed us out close to 6 months, so this is seeking that extension.
And I just wanted you to know, because I don't like signing things without you knowing I'm signing them, okay? Wayne Miller, you have something.
Yes, Russell Job from VFW, Massachusetts, reached out to me last month. They're seeking to get the Wall That Heals, which is the mobile Vietnam veterans memorial. I'm pleased to announce that they got approval to have it come visit Townsend later this year, or next year, I think it is.
Yep.
So I'll read the release. Ask Jim, make sure it gets on the, I'm not gonna read the entire thing because it gives a 2-page history of what the wall is, but the Wall That Heals is coming to Townsend on 8/20/2020 through 8/23/2020. Vietnam Veterans Memorial Replica Wall and Mobile Education Center spreads healing legacy of the wall and educates about the impact of the Vietnam War. The Wall That Heals, a 3/4 scale replica of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, along with the Mobile Education Center, is coming to Townsend on August 20th through the 23rd, 2020. The exhibit will be open 24-hour days and 24 hours a day and free to the public. Operations Service in Townsend VFW Post 6538 are leading the effort that will bring the exhibit to Townsend. The Wall That Here honors more than 3 million Americans who served in the U.S. Armed Forces in the Vietnam War and bears its names of 58,276 men and women who made the ultimate sacrifice in Vietnam. The Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund is pleased to bring the Wall That Heals mobile exhibit to Townsend to allow local veterans and their families members to a chance to experience the wall in honor. Remember those who served and sacrificed, says Jim Knotts, President and CEO of VVMF. Hosting the Wall That Heals provides an opportunity for healing and an educational experience for visitors of the impact of the Vietnam War of America. Townsend has a time-honored tradition of honoring our veterans. Being able to bring the Wall That Heals to Townsend is a thrill and an honor for the entire veteran community. We're grateful to have a location that will make the Wall That Heals accessible to thousands of visitors from our community and surrounding towns. Keith Jackson, VFW, past state commander, 2018 to 19.
Excellent.
The one thing I did want to add, community support's needed to bring the wall to Townsend. More than 100 volunteers will be needed to set up and take down the replica wall, staff the exhibit, and guide visitors 24 hours a day. Financial and in-kind donations are also needed to support the community event. To learn more about this, you can visit the Facebook page that's listed there. That will be on our website. We'll update this page with location of the exhibit, ways to donate and volunteer. I know that they also have a GoFundMe page that's been set up. I'm not sure what other community funding has been set up, but that's pretty much Yeah, so, and the next page is about the Wall that Heals, so
Nice.
it'll be out there, so.
Question on that, can we make sure that that notice goes to the schools too?
They're already, we will, but they're already, Russell did say that they're in contact. And
Excellent.
they're working on potentially the school as a location.
Excellent, wonderful.
The school will be up during that time, so
Yeah,
it's
thank you.
opportune.
Madam Chair, in another community where I've been, we actually were honored to have this opportunity as well. And the volunteers working to staff it 24 hours a day, I can tell you there's nothing that's going to hit you more than being that volunteer at 2 in the morning or 4 in the morning and having people coming in, and just the experience of them being able to see the wall. Not everybody can get themselves to DC to see the actual 100% wall, but this 75% scale wall. This isn't the moving wall, which is closer to a 60% scale. This is a full 3/4 scale. It's an incredible opportunity for the community, and a blessing for
So
those.
it ends
that-
up to be like a 3-day vigil?
It is, and it's just a blessing for those that have the opportunity to get to see it.
I would imagine the churches might want to be involved in that as well.
I know that when I spoke with Russell last week, he said that they are, that, they're doing, casting a wide net
Good.
for partnering with other organizations.
Nice. Clerk announcements, presentation, suicide prevention.
Yes, I have that, plus I was given 2 others this evening.
Okay.
This is from Lynn Giancotta. On November 6th, that's from 6 to 8 p.m. at North Middlesex Regional High School's Performing Arts Center. They will be having a guest speaker, Steve, I hope I don't kill this, but Bozenowski, come and speak to parents, families, and community members for our district. This will be the first evening presentation, and they will have open to the general public. Earlier in the day, another speaker will be presenting to the high school students. Steve and his wife are from Groton. They lost their son 10 years ago to suicide. Soon thereafter, they started TADS, the Teenage Anxiety and Depression Solutions, to raise mental health awareness and to offer tools for early signs of suicide. They also offer free SOS signs of suicide classes to surrounding communities for the first responders and school staff. We are very fortunate to have him coming here.
Very good.
That's tomorrow evening.
That's tomorrow evening. I have 2 others. These are both for the Veterans of Foreign Wars Post. The first one, the VFW Post 6538, and its auxiliary, the American Legion Post number 199, and its Ladies Auxiliary will honor all veterans who currently serve in the military and all veterans of earlier generations, including those who paid the ultimate sacrifice to maintain our society's freedom, at the Veterans Day ceremony to be held at the VFW Park Monument in West Townsend on Monday, November 11th, beginning at 11 a.m. The public is cordially invited. Parents are strongly encouraged to bring their children to the ceremony in the importance of Veterans Day. There will be light refreshments will be served at the VFW Hall Function Hall, 491 Main Street, West Townsend, following the 11 a.m. Veterans Day ceremony. The second one is from the same post, and its auxiliary will once again sponsor the Sanders Evening Christmas Eve Santa Claus program in the town of Townsend as part of its community service and youth activities program. All Townsend residents who will have at least one child of age which believes in Santa Claus in their Townsend homes on Christmas Eve are invited to use this service. Participation is completely free. The VFW Santa Claus will visit every participating family on Christmas Eve between the hours of 5 and 8 p.m. and will stay for 5 minutes or less and hand each child a small hand-carried gift that has been provided by the family. Picture taking by the family is definitely encouraged. In order to include In order to be included in the program, you must bring the gift you wish to have Santa present to your child at 491 Main Street, West Townsend, the VFW Function Hall, on Sunday, November the 24th, between the hours of 1 and 4. Specifically designated representatives of the Townsend Post and its auxiliary will be on hand to accept the gift. Each gift must be securely wrapped with the child's full name and address clearly marked on the wrapping paper, and it must be small and light enough to easily be carried in one hand. The total of its length, width, and depth must not exceed 26 inches, and gifts that of those charged of the program considered it to be too large or too heavy for Christmas Eve delivery will not be accepted. It is strongly recommended the gifts not having flat surfaces be boxed before wrapping, since the paper covering objects will vary in contour, tended to tear with many gifts are packed together. And there's a number of other things, and I believe they're gonna post all of this, so.
Spoiler alert. I'm looking at the time, hopefully. Nothing, I've just, know we're televised, that's all.
I do have one more,
Yes,
build on the veterans.
please,
Townsend Ridge is offering free golf to all veterans on Monday the 11th
wonderful.
with
Oh,
free
that's
food.
great.
So if anybody is a veteran and wants to play golf, Derek is opening the course.
Isn't that wonderful?
Awesome.
Very nice, very nice. Anything else there?
Nope.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
This is Bentley, whose last name is
Hi.
not known to me. We just had it be a formal appointment. I blanked on your last name.
Herget.
Herget.
Yes.
So,
You were fire chief, weren't you?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
I looked at him for help, and he looked at me and said,
Yeah, he's moving down in the world.
That was quite a while ago,
Yeah, plus my son and your daughter went to school together.
on Tuesday.
Yeah, so they're familiar with it.
So
Thank you so much
I'll-
for helping us out.
Yes.
Oh, you're
Appreciate
welcome.
it.
I'll catch up with you tomorrow on all the details and get you sworn and all that fun stuff.
I've already been sworn in.
As the alternate, but there's a different
Okay.
title, so we'll just want to make sure we're.
True. Okay. If not, well, I'll talk to you tomorrow. I can be here, like 4:35, or we can do it on Friday, whatever works for you.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See
Good
guys.
night.
Thank you.
And girls.
That's done. Board correspondence,
I don't have any.
none, unless we want to talk about, well, next agenda and board correspondence. That is, something we received from Beth.
Yes.
That needs to be on the
Yep,
next
It's
agenda.
in the folder, so there's
Okay.
a grant opportunity the planning board is pursuing, and they're looking for support of the select board on it, so.
And I wanted to have it on this agenda, but it got skipped, so,
Just a question on that, is the 19th the next scheduled meeting?
yes,
It
I
is.
will probably be remote.
it's fine. 3.5, review and sign payroll and bills payable warrants. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we review and sign payroll and bill payable warrants out of session.
Second?
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Executive session.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
There's actually no need to do this in executive session because you've already approved it in executive session.
Oh,
This is
okay.
the provision that Don and I worked on with the fire union to make certain changes in the language of the contract to allow the staffing changes that are
Yes.
required. This is just a vote to
Ratify.
ratify it in public and sign out of session.
Okay, so do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we sign and ratify out of session the contract with the fire union.
Second?
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And the only other thing that, okay, so next time, we've got a list of pending matters,
Forgot my jacket.
personal, so you're just gonna keep.
If these
a-
are just issues that when you and I met,
we
you said
don't
just
lose
push them
them.
off to the next, we don't lose
Yeah,
them.
okay, thank you. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion that we adjourn at 8:12.
Well,
Second?
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, good night, all.
Good night.
Thank you,
Thank you.